20 years for the practice of medicine. They've taught me now to practice law. The Quebec Law Society has convicted me of practice of law when I wasn't even in Quebec, at the prompting of Health Canada officials, by the way. Health Canada officials disliked dealing with me so much that they complained to the Law Society of Quebec, and in a kangaroo court in Longueuil, I was convicted in absence of practicing law when I never stepped foot in a court in Quebec. And it was because of Health Canada complaints. Health Canada has become a nation unto its own. No health minister, no prime minister, no Senate, no House of Commons in Canada controls Health Canada. It is a criminal gang, totally out of control. And I'll give you some examples. So you've got to realize that they are all, Health Canada employees are our employees. We pay for them. What a silly system. Why do we want to pay for people to destroy our freedoms? Now, I'm a small businessman and have been for many years. Can you imagine me hiring and paying for an employee that I didn't have the right to fire? Who would ever do that? No one would. So why can't we fire our MPs? Why don't we have recall? Good question, right? So the federal government is a corporation no different than IBM, GM, or any other corporations. All corporations are artificial persons and were created by us human beings by some specific legal instrument that limits their authority and specifies their obligation. This is supposed to be their rule book. They ignore it. No corporation can or should claim to be equal or greater than any sovereign spiritual human being. It's a very simple concept. I became involved in the traditional holistic health lifestyle while I was studying at Carleton University for a BSc in science. It was because Carleton had the diplomatic students, I became involved in international friendships, and it was as a result of that that I became curious about non-American diets, let's say. And so I got into Japanese and Chinese cooking, and that's what led me into what I call traditional holistic healthcare. Now, it's very, very important. Don't let them set the agenda by the way they define words. They have people they pay $500,000 a year, and they have hundreds of them that try to figure out how to con us and defraud us and confuse us. So the word natural health product is a killer to us, literally and figuratively, okay? No one should ever use natural health product. What they're talking about is they're talking about traditional holistic health care, which is the primary healthcare system of the globe and has been since the beginnings of man. Every religion in the world recognizes that good food, healthy food, lifestyle, codes of conduct comes from some god or whatever the different faiths believe in. So the concept, you must not, every time anybody uses the word natural health products, say, no, no, you're talking about traditional holistic healthcare, and I have a right to have that. I should be able to go down to my hospital. When I go to my hospital with my funds, I should be able to ask for a naturopath. And they should be able to in Quebec. Do you know in Quebec, they don't even let a naturopath call themselves a doctor? How much the big pharma has manipulated the laws in Quebec? Were you aware of that? So they have very carefully, I call it the onion principle. Everyone knows that one flimsy skin of a young onion has no substance. But if you take enough skins and put them together, it appears to have substance. But you and I have to join together in the freedom model that I'm describing to you today, and we become the freedom mallet. That onion they've built that isn't lawful, you hammer it and it disappears instantly. Health Canada is a house of cards. It has no lawful authority to even staff 90% of its people working for it. It doesn't follow its own legislation. It doesn't follow its own, our Constitution. And it can't beat us. We've proven in 4 consecutive criminal cases, several of which I've worked with Sean Buckley on as an equal partner, that they cannot sustain criminal charges, especially before a jury. I import these prescription products that they call prescription, and I put them in my name in the U.S., I ship them to my name, I do commercial quantities, and I tell them, make my day. Come and arrest me, put me in jail, and you'll create another Nelson Mandela. Because I will force a jury trial, I'll put your entire culture on trial, and you'll be the guys going to jail, not me. I was very fortunate. God has been kind to me because my father was a senior government mandarin. He had a doctorate degree in public administration, ironically, in '52. So I was raised in the power circles. Most good revolutions happen from people that understand or were raised on the inside. So I know the government. I know the culture. I had a 7-year career, a very successful one. I left it because of the corruption and the nonsense within the career. Because I even then believed that I was acting as a trustee for the people when I was working as a public servant. They didn't share my view. Something else is, in our criminal challenges, we were told by lawyers in 2003 that we couldn't put the white coats on trial in front of a judge or jury and win because the judge and jury would assume that they were right and we were wrong. So the few of us that were at that meeting with 3 or 4 lawyers protested that and said, we have to figure out a way to put the white coats on trial because they are the #1 killer in society and I can prove it. And I'm very good at research, I'm very good at detail. That led to a best-selling book that I co-authored with Dr. Carolyn Dean, who's an MD and an ND, called Death by Modern Medicine. In it, we proved that there was 783,000 recorded deaths in the States that weren't being reported, and that the preventable medical risks are the #1 killer in North America by far. You're talking about 2,000 people a day, equivalent to 7 jumbo jets crashing full of people that is preventable because highly regulated profession, medical doctors, pharmacists, nurses, in heavily regulated facilities, pharmacies, and hospitals, with heavily regulated products, prescription drugs, doesn't work. So why would we think the federal government is competent at anything? They can't regulate what they're supposed to regulate, which is harm and damage to people with the main leading cause of death. But they don't want us there because we can compete with those industries successfully. Whoops. So you have both the French, my table's in the back corner over there, you have both French and English of all my literature for the first time. So you have so there's Dr. Carolyn Dean, there's our book. It won a US award that I went to Washington in 2006 as the best independently published health book of the year. I do have one of the sponsors of this committee, of this group today, has contacted me some time ago and is interested in putting it into French and publishing it and selling it. So I expect that to happen shortly, so watch for his promotions on the book in French. I published Health Freedom newspaper as well, and you'll see a picture of it. So there's a French and English subscription to the newspaper. It comes out 4 times a year, and it'll keep you on the leading edge of our battles for freedom, both legally, politically, and science-wise. We're attacking it all 3 ways. I've attended different events in Bonn, Germany, and other places. I've actually done 5, I think, but anyway. There's Dr. Carolyn Dean, there's our book, there's a number of books she's written. There's an example from our archives. You can see Dr. Colin Carey was working with our group when we were fighting it in committee. We've been very blessed. Dr. Colin Carey, who's a chiropractor who we know very well, is now the parliamentary secretary for the Minister of Health in Ottawa. I've met with him 3 times in the last month and a half and 7 times since March. And I don't support the conservative position on C6 and the new C10, by the way, which is being introduced shortly, which is the rebirth of C51. So it's going to be called C10, and they have it ready to go next week. I'll talk about that a little later in this discussion. But I do have to give the conservatives credit. In the last 4 months, the conservatives have been the most proactive of any government in history with me on being prepared to investigate individual cases, case by case, of allegations of misconduct of Health Canada. One of the people we've taken to him, how many people here have heard about the Dr. Eldon Dahl naturopath incident in Calgary? Show of hands, who has heard of it? No one? Okay, this is unbelievable. On January 15th of this year, Dr. Eldon Dahl, who's a manufacturer and naturopath, he doesn't practice, he only supplies to other naturopaths. His home had an armed invasion with armed officers. They pointed a gun at the front door, right at his wife's face. They held his daughter and his family in their home for 11 hours under force. They removed everything. They went through their bedrooms, their private effects, forced them to open their safe. So when Sean talks about the issues with C6, C6 is only there because our movement is defying them and they know they can't back themselves up in court. That's why C6 is there. That's why the C51 and C52 were introduced last year. They're trying to do